Good evening. This is KC9UDX. My name is Matt, and I welcome you to the 2 a.m. net. The purpose of this net is to promote the use of amplitude modulation, and also to establish this part of this band as a place for AM activity in this area. Everyone is invited to listen. Licensed amateurs who can do so legally are encouraged to check in. We listen in the AM mode and transmit in the AM mode where possible. If you cannot transmit in AM, we encourage you to listen in AM and transmit in FM. Excuse me. If you are transmitting in FM, please adjust your transmit frequency a couple kCs above or below from our receive frequency. This facilitates the use of slope detection, that is, demodulating your FM signal with our AM receivers. When checking in, please announce your call sign in standard phonetics. Again, this is KC9UDX. My name is Matt, and I will now begin accepting check-ins. Any stations wishing to check in, please come now. Hearing none always makes me wonder if I'm transmitting or not. Anybody wants to check into the 2 a.m. net, here we are. Come now, please. Recognizing Dave, WB9BWP. Thank you, Dave, for not leaving me here all by myself. Do we excuse me, do we have anybody else? Hearing none, I guess it's you and me for now, Dave. I guess I'll start out here by saying that not too much has changed, as pretty much always. I gotta readjust my microphone here a little bit. I do have to get a new microphone for in here at some point. I was looking for this microphone stand for in my studio, and I could not find it anywhere. And then tonight, of course, I realized it's been in here for a very long time, and it's very impractical. It gets in the way of the chair. So at some point, I have to invest in a desk mic that is kind of omnidirectional. This one is not that way, and that's a problem too. I guess other things that I've accomplished, I built a box to go outside to contain all of my scrap wood, because I make everything out of scrap. I never get rid of anything. And that freed up a lot of room in my shop, which means now I can actually get to work on my car. Something I could have been doing during the winter if I had had that space. And I started on a project I guess I've been meaning to do for about 20 years. And that is reverse engineering the CNC control on the milling machine that I have. I have downloaded the monitor ROM off of the EEPROM that's in it. Actually, not an EEPROM, it's just a PROM chip. And I have successfully disassembled and commented more than half of the code. Got a little bit more to go on that, and then I get to work on the master program, which handles everything else. The monitor ROM is about 8K. It is 8K. Code is not that big. There's a substantial amount of data. But the master program is huge. It's 48K of mostly code, so that's going to be some serious effort when I get that far. And that's pretty much all I think I can talk about at this point, so I'll turn it over to you, Dave, WB9BWP from KC9UDX.
Okay. Before I go too far, does everything sound okay over here?
Roger, sounds perfect. Go ahead.
Okay. I had to take the radio offline for a couple of weeks while I got things shuffled to the other. I've got a kind of a two-bay. It's an old Motorola comm center type rack. I got for nothing. And the radio was moving over to the other side of the rack to make room for a new HF radio. I'll tell that story. But anyway, this radio is TS2000. I had to pull it out, make a new mount and stuff for it to go over on the other side. So that's been not hooked up for a couple of weeks. When I just got it back in last night and got everything hooked up, and it's like, oh, okay, I hope everything works. So I guess it does. And I did buy a new HF radio to take over the HF portion of the 2000. However, it developed a problem, and unfortunately I didn't play with it hard enough, fast enough, so that I could just return it and get another one. I passed the 10-day mark, so I had to send it in. And just today, in fact, the repair place received it and sent me an email saying, we got it. Tell us again what the problem is, even though everything's written down in the box. But I guess telling them a couple of times, having them get it right is better than not at all. What it started doing was the internal antenna tuner on 40 and 80 and 160 decided it was never going to find a match, and it would just run forever. And that's not what it's supposed to do. It did not give an error. If it decides it can't do it, it would stop after just a few seconds and send the SWR and code. Did not do that. It would just keep banging away at the relays. So that definitely was a problem. It was a Kenwood radio, TS890. And I talked to them, and while the guy was on the phone, and he's saying, well, do this, and do this, and do this. And he could actually hear the thing running over the phone. So it's like, yeah, okay, so I'm in it. Anyway. And even though it's warranty work, I still had to pay to send it. They'll pay to send it back. It's like, hey, come on. Especially when that radio weighs 50 pounds. So, with insurance and all that, I forget what it came to. It was like $120 or something to ship it. Like, wow, thanks, guys. That's the radio. I think that's the timer in the radio. I should look at that. And anyway, your project there, wow, that's the kind of thing that I would say, yeah, I'd like to do that, and that would never happen. So, you're ahead of me there, or something like that. I've got a heat kit, automatic antenna tuner here, mid-80s vintage. In fact, it used to be Jerry's K9FI, who should be here tonight. But, looking at that, it's like, well, gee, that's mid-80s, there's a big circuit board there, and it's like, wow, I bet you could eliminate most of this stuff by putting a processor in there. But it's like, yeah, I can talk all I want about that. Probably would never happen. Nonetheless, I guess that's enough now. The radio obviously told me I was talking too much. So, I'll give it back to you, and we can see if anybody else will come out there. This is WP9PWP.
All right, thank you, Dave. And the CNC control is from the mid-70s. It's very early microprocessor stuff. And I guess I hesitate to call it a microcomputer, even though it takes a microprocessor, just because it's a bunch of cards in a card rack, and it's pretty big. And like I say, yeah, it's almost one of those things I never got around to doing, like you were saying, because I'd been trying to do this for about 20 years. And I can't say for sure that I'll ever get done, but Well, and the other point I was going to make here, like you said, you know, reducing components, I could actually buy a replacement for that control that only takes one of those boards in that card rack, and you pretty much get rid of all the other cards. And even then, that one board is hardly populated. I could kind of do the same thing, but I don't know. I don't really want to modify it to the point where it's not what it used to be anymore, so I'm going to make the new parts compatible with the old parts. I'll probably consolidate the RAM. The RAM is on 2 different boards, and they're huge, and I can do that all on one little chip, so put that on the same board as the processor in the future. Anyway, I'll keep going on and on if I don't stop talking about that now, but your TS890, that sounds like my kind of luck. Buy something and let it sit too long to try it out and then spend a bunch of money sending it back. That's exactly the kind of thing that would happen to me. Let's see if we have any more check-ins for the 2 a.m. net. Come now, please. And there we got Jerry, K9FI. Jerry, welcome to the net. Do we have anybody else? Alright, hearing none, I'll send it to you, Jerry. K9FI from KC9UDX.
Okay, Matt. If Gabe was on, I didn't hear him at all, so propagation is very good tonight. And I just realized what happened was when I was sitting in my chair watching the program on TV, one of the news programs, and I realized it was a little after 8, so I had to rush down here and jump in before the net was over. But otherwise, the only thing that did excite me, we went out to Chinese. My brother, who I haven't had his wife, who I haven't seen in over a year because of all the virus stuff, but it was a very nice meeting, and it's nice to see everybody again. But as far as radio, the only thing is getting on the normal HF net that I used to do, other than that, nothing otherwise that exciting. So back to Matt. And who else is on the net tonight? K9FI.
All right, thank you, Jerry. It's just you, I, and Dave WB9BWP, who happened to just be talking about you right before you came on here. So nothing bad, of course, just mentioning the fact that you were going to be here. And here you are. So I'll tell you what, it does seem good that things are kind of getting back to normal. I still have to wear a mask or face shield or whatever at work, and that's getting really, really old. But other than that, that and excuse me, the inflation that is going on, everything is skyrocketing in price. Things seem to be kind of getting back to normal, which is good. And with that, I guess we're at the bottom of the list again. I'll see if we have any more check-ins. Come now, please. All right, hearing none. I'll mention one more thing I discovered here tonight. I've been trying to figure this out for well over a year. There's this black sticky goo that is on my microphone stand here, and it was on something else here, and I don't even remember what it was. I cleaned it up. But I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. Excuse me. And I've got a KDK mobile transceiver mounted up above everything here, and it must have been getting hot because the rubber foot on the bottom is melted, and that is definitely the source of the black goo. And with that, I guess we'll go to the top of the list. Dave, WB9BWP from KC9UDX.
Okay. Well, good evening, Jerry, even though you probably can't hear me. I had a quick tool for fire up YouTube so I can hear what he sounds like or hear anything from him. And it's working tonight, so that's good. Yeah, there's an MSOE net on Monday nights, and I always make sure I announce things. And I play up the YouTube thing. It's like, well, if you don't have the equipment or you can't hear, go over there and give a listen. But as is usually the case, when I make announcements and things like that, I think that's like commercials in football games. That's when everybody gets up and goes to the bathroom or refrigerator or something like that. So, anyway, I guess I'll mention my ongoing project, I guess, because it seems like that's all I've been talking about for months. Late last year, I quickly grew up this antenna that I read about in the books, and it didn't quite do what I was hoping, and so I went to work on it earlier this year, and I wanted to, there's a control box with two relays in it, where 4 wires come together up in a tree, and I wanted to get that taken care of before all the foliage came back out. And yeah, I was able to get that up there just in time. In fact, it had to go up and down a couple of times. 4 wires connecting to this box beside the open wire feed line and the control cable. As you're pulling it up, it's really easy for this thing to start twisting around unless you have about 6 people holding all the wires and everything. But I finally got it up there, and I'm trying to actually learn how it works. It's the first time I've actually used open wire line. I built some of my own. And so now I'm playing with it because it turns out you need to find the proper length of the feed line in order to make everything work the way your radios like to see it, I guess. Because it turns out the impedance of the antenna can vary from almost nothing up to 1,000 ohms or more. And depending on what you do to the feed line as far as length goes, you can adjust what things look like on the shack side. It goes to just a crummy homemade 4-to-1 balance that I threw together. And that hangs outside. But so I started messing with it, and I added like 9 feet of the feed line. There's the radio again. I started messing with the feed line. I added like 9 feet to it just because that was a handy alcohol wire that I had laying here. And I actually got it being really good across 10 meters and 220 megahertz, which is a really weird combination. I'm not even supposed to do anything with 220. It's a 4-wire V-beam, and a V-beam is made up of long wires, so anything longer than one wavelength. So there's actually 4 106-foot wires, about 45 degrees apart. It kind of varies a little, depending on my support. But anyway, and then it got really hot and stuff, so I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. I got this stuff done. I had to get done up with the tree, so now I'm just playing with making some more feed lines, so I can play with that. And if I'm lucky, I'll find the right combination where it actually looks like it's supposed to, between 10 and 20. So, obviously, I'm talking too much again because the radio is telling me that I am. So, I will send it back to, we now have a net. This is WB9BWP.
All right, thank you, Dave. Well, you can never really talk too long in AM, so I think you have to disable that timer one of these times. Excuse me. I'll tell you what, you guys keep hearing me cough, and you probably know that this is normal for me. You know, my allergies have always been this way, except for last year. Last year around this time, I had almost no problems that I can think of at all with allergies. And this year, they're worse than ever, so I don't know what's going on here. And you mentioned the length of the feed line affecting the impedance of the feed point. Actually, it affects the impedance of the whole system. And I've been thinking about that with my dipole here, only because I don't know how this happened, but the feed line got pulled tight, and of course the wind pulled on the antenna and unraveled the feed line, which is made up of that 450 ohm window line stuff, which tore apart, and now I've got longer longer antenna elements and shorter feed line. Unless I replace that feed line or doctor it up somehow. I probably should just replace that feed line. I would really like to cover it with some foam and make it so that it doesn't take up the whole yard just having the feed line away from the antenna. With foam around it, I can pretty much just lay it on the ground or run it along whatever I have to. And with that, I'll say too, I noticed Jerry commented that propagation seems to be down, and I would agree. Both you guys normally have the same signal level at about 6 1/4 on my meter, and you're both about 5 1/2 tonight. So I would say that's down quite a bit, and that doesn't help us. And I'll tell you what, the hot weather is really something. That's something that seems to be normal the past decade or so, where we don't really have an extended spring. It just goes from cold to hot, and that's sure what it did this year. It went from cold to too hot, too quick. But with that, we'll go to Jerry K9FI from KC9UDX.
Okay, man. Yeah, it's a shame I can't hear Dave. I suppose I should turn my computer on. Excuse me. I can at least hear him, but with a little bit of time delay. But so far, all my antennas are doing fine out here. Tower's still doing okay. The beam is still turning. The rotator's working. One change, I should replace it. And that'll probably happen when it stops. But I hopefully can get it. And my wife is doing a lot of radio operating on ETS. She's been getting her Katrina hurricane thing. She got her certificate today for operating stations that were down around Texas, Mississippi, and Louisiana. She's had a lot of fun doing that. She gets the kick out of it, and she even gets a bigger kick when she gets the certificate. And I said, that's fun. That's part of the fun of the radio. But I have a C5 RME on here. My mind is just got a set with RC and it's been in there for forever. I only put it in as a temporary key line, but I got lazy, and then it's got, of course, 30 feet of 450 twinning, and that went working good. Now that I went laid through this, I have it on a pulley on it. The tower spread out about the tower anchor is, or the mountain center is on a pulley, and what I do is I said some of these black cord that the HRO zones and resistance to sunlight that lays it through the whole twin lead that fasts it down on the bottom of the balance wood, and that keeps the wind twin lead from blowing in the wind. Otherwise, like weather being like a sail because it's so flat. And what happened was I used to break the twin lead off the balance and the flex on that little edges right there coming out of the balance and break off. Then I went and fixed that, and of course I fixed it with feeding the cord to the twin lead and pulling it taut. Not real bad, tight enough so that the 450 doesn't blow in the wind anymore, and that works out really good. It's been like that for several years now. And when, of course, when it's windy out, I look at it, it's nice and stable. But so far, the antenna's been working good. And people get excited about the ultimate antennas. Well, all I can say is you got to live with what you got. So, yeah. The other thing, Matt, is you mentioned about counting out the repeaters. I have to remember that on this band I don't have to. It's just for every 10 minutes. Go back to the Matt, K9FI.
All right, thank you, Jerry. And yeah, we don't need to do the 3-minute thing here. Anybody could talk for a half hour, and that's fine. It probably won't get it back around to you if you do. Otherwise, we'll run way late, and I'll have to drop everything and run. But otherwise, that's okay. That's one of the nice things about not being on a repeater, of course. And with AM, we're allowed to be long-winded, I think. That's just by convention. And I can certainly understand, Jerry, what you're talking about, putting up that feed line temporarily. I think most of the stuff I've done like that starts out temporary and ends up being very permanent. And it's just kind of a shame I never get a chance to do anything on HF anymore. It would be fun to get that antenna working again. You know, it's ironic because when I did use it, wind would take it down all the time. And since I haven't used it in years and years now, I haven't had to do anything to it except for this year when the insulator in the center came apart and the feed line started unraveling. And with that, we're at the bottom of the list. Do we have any more check-ins for the 2 a.m. net? Come now, please.
Here we go. Is this mic on? N9FSE.
And there we got Steve, N9FSE. Welcome to the net. Do we have anybody else? Hearing none, I'll turn it over to you. Excuse me, Steve. By the way, we also have Dave WB9BWP and Jerry K9FI. But Steve, go ahead and take a turn, N9FSE from KC9UDX.
Just heard you in there. Just got things hooked up out here at the site. About a year. Sorry, I missed last month. All of a sudden it's like, oh, it's over already. Notice that. So I'm going to do better reminders on myself as usual. But it's good to be here. Good to hear you so far. But good to Dave and Jerry out here. So at least we got a few. Keep the lights on out here. Haven't been out here, like I said, a couple of months. So it's a couple of changes out here to see. But nothing too crazy. I got to start keeping stuff stored in the drawer so I can use the plug even quicker. But at least I bring the right stuff. I even have a spare radio today. Looking forward to field day with the 3E crew. That's coming up. I'm going to be here a little earlier, but we were listening to local live and then MSC. We heard punk rock band, Alex Flambeau and Jim Tiller was on getting interviewed. So it was a little fun diversion as opposed to my usual news innings. And we're looking forward to the usual week of good stuff. Getting used to the heat. I've been doing a little rough work with co-workers, so that's been good to get out of the shop a little bit, but still got plenty to do and keep things pretty intense with we're not short-handed, but we're not overly staffed, so it's like everything that's going to happen, there's only a few of us to do it, so we make sure we get it done. So that's my report from out here in New Berlin right now. Hope everybody's doing good. Looking forward to the Ham Fest in Lyons on Saturday, and then Kakana the week after, and then field day, and then more polka fun in between field days. Oh my goodness, lots going on coming up. Big summer here. Looking forward to it. Hope everybody's doing great. And send it back up to net control. I'm sorry I missed out on the early show. This is the FSC in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Waukesha County, Wisconsin.
All right, thank you, Steve. Excuse me. Dang it. Anyway, better late than never. And I will say that your signal is down too. You're down to an 8, but perfect copy here anyway. And I guess everybody's signal is down tonight. So I got to imagine mine is way down. Someday I got to do something about that. And well, I tell you what, the summer, excuse me, summer will be over before you know it. I've got a busy week coming up here, and all kinds of other plans. Don't know that I'll ever get around to anything. Of course, busier than ever at work, as always. So not much time to do anything. And, excuse me. With that, we're at the bottom of the list, and I'm having a hard time talking, so I'll see if we have any more check-ins for the 2 a.m. net. Come now, please. Hearing none, we'll go back to the top of the list. Dave, WP9BWP from KC9UDX. Thank you, Dave. And I do think you went about 4 minutes, which is just fine. That works out good. And I did read that in QST, but I don't think it was within the last year. Maybe it was, but it seems to me it was longer than that. I'll tell you what, there's a lot of things that I read in there that I wish I could remember. And that one I committed to memory better than most because it's so important. especially in my situation, being able to wrap that feed line in foam and then route it wherever would be very nice if I ever get around to doing that. Excuse me. And then you mentioned the 4-inch open wire feed line. That's something I've always wanted to do too, but you know, that's one of those things that you need time and space to do it, and I just never seem to have that. That is the kind of feed line, though, that if you don't have it up in the air, it takes up a ton of space. I've got boxes full of antenna wire here somewhere, and that's kind of overwhelming as it is. And I was going to comment on something else, but I don't recall what it was. Something about one of the ham fests. But anyway, I'll turn it over to Jerry, K9FI from KC9UDX.
Okay, Matt. Well, that time I heard Dave a little bit, barely audible, that I could tell there was a signal in there. And you were talking about passing the wind lead. I think that's the normal stuff that's about it. Why? What I was thinking, if you're going to wrap it up in something, I'd look at that insulation piece for insulating pipe. It's got a slit in it, it's round, it's about 2 inches, 3 inches round, and I think they come in 1 inch diameter, inside diameter, for different size pipe. That would be something to consider where you could actually seal it if you wanted to seal it up or whatever with RGB on the lap joint, or the seams to do that, and that would protect the wire from getting messed with and keep it away from the piston. But I've never done any of that, and generally, if I can, I run coax. That's the way I look at it. Even though it has its loss, and like you said, but the 450 open one that I use in my stuff, whatever, and if you look at something like a 4-inch brand would probably come around 600 ohms, and that would be better. And all that open line stuff is, like you say, very low loss, so you got run a long way. It's not a bad idea if you got a way to support it. And then you just have to match it at wherever you're going to use it. But I haven't got into that yet. I have been playing with my 102-inch whip, the CD whip, and I've been figuring out that I would like to I'm going to have a capped coil on the bottom of it, so I can use it on other bands and see how that works. I'll use the front of it, because I can mount it on a tripod or on the back of the bumper mount on my car. I can use with the Hudson verticals that I was using for Mosul and I want to see if the Hudson Mosul antenna sounds any better or is any better than the 102-inch whip with a capped conductor on the bottom. But anyhow, that's stuff I've been playing with. And I still haven't done anything with satellites yet. I keep talking about it, but that's about all it is. And I should really watch this once in a while. And the problem with tonight, there's probably not a lot of people on because it took a while. This is the longest time of the year. My wife is out in the garden now, working out there. She got over the hot time of the day, and now she's going out, picking up asparagus and good garden, all that. She's building it in food. And she'll probably come with a bunch of strawberries again like she did this morning. Well, you guys, when we went out for lunch, this was interesting. This place we went out, all we had was buffet dinner. The Chinese restaurant is out in Suffolk. And the people that run it was my wife. We went there because they have a buffet. And she says, we can't have a buffet because we can't get anybody to work. Nobody wants to work anymore. And then I go to other stores and say, yeah, we can't get people to work either. In fact, I was talking to Joe Q9A and he was saying, even with people doing that kind of work he does, he's having a hard time getting people to work. So I guess there's all these subsidies that are screwing up the labor market. So anyhow, that's K9FI.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Yeah, that is a huge problem. And I get the impression that some of our politicians say they want to do something about that. Don't know that anybody will ever actually do anything, but that's why they're politicians, I guess. Yeah, a lot of people have really good incentive to not work, and that's a huge problem. I guess you'd have to have a smaller restaurant to have a buffet anyway. A lot of the larger buffets, for whatever reason, aren't doing buffet anymore. Don't know if that will ever return. Country Buffet is closed down. I don't know that they'll ever reopen. They didn't really say that they were closed down permanently, but I don't know how they could reopen after being closed that long. And the Golden Corral over here, excuse me, they still kind of have a buffet, I guess, but it's not get your own food anymore like it used to be. You got to ask for it, which is very strange and very hard to do. And that foam insulation, what you're talking about there with the split, I think is exactly the kind of stuff that was used in the article. And I'm not sure if he used the kind with the slit or not, but I recall thinking that it would be better to use the kind without the slit. I've got probably 10 feet of it around here for whatever reason. In fact, I think I used it for padding on bike tubes and things. So that's probably why I have it. But I have the kind without the slit, and I thought that would be ideal. It would be a little bit extra work sliding it over the feed line, but once it's on there, it's on there. I was going to say something else like that. No, I don't recall what it was anymore. Anyway, next we'll go to Steve at 9FSE from KC9UDX.
All right. Thank you, Matt. It's good to be back on AM again here. And see if I can rewind through parts of the last conversations here and see what we can do here with all that. And haven't been to a buffet in quite some time due to everything, and was looking forward to the buffet at the Indian place. I was just starting to get used to that, and attended like twice, and then the COVID hit, and they shut that buffet down, and they're looking to see if they were going to get back at it. Abel gave a call over there, and no buffet. Hopefully they can return to it sooner or later. And all, but you also got the problem with the other cyber trouble. Listen to stuff on the Facebook, and there's Tommy Schwei. He makes sausage up in Ozaki County, big in West Bend and all too. He used to have a place over on CC near the town of West Bend there and all that. So he always had good stuff, but he had his own strawberry festival, but the thing that I noted when he was talking about all that, cool that he was there last week, but he didn't know what he was going to do this week because due to the GD meat problem, they weren't able to, it didn't look like he was going to get some meat for the sausage, so we'll have to see if they eventually follow through or if they got to wait an extra week if you want the excellent Schwei sausage from up there. I wonder if Bratwurst is around. I wonder if he's working on his ham chicken. You can touch upon that. There's a little bit on the west side. I got the headphones on now, so I don't hear as much background noise with the fans blowing, but we got the ACs on nice, so we're chilling out here as best as possible, but I probably should get home, get things aired out there. Looking forward to HamFest, as mentioned. Hopefully I can attend two this month, at least one next month, and all kinds of, I guess August is a month full of it, so we'll have to see how that works out. And then also in August, looking forward to the MRAC Mars picnic. To see what I can bring out the grill. We'll figure something nice, I'm sure. Maybe some Schwei sausage, that might be, tie all that in nice. And you're very good on sharing the garden there, Jerry. It is the season, and if it's raining, you're going to be out. If it's at the heat of the sun, you can skip that too. But the early and late show, and it's not as bad. So hopefully you can lighten up. Though I don't care for that as much as the rest. The dry heat from earlier, that wasn't too bad. At least it was allowed us to get used to some of it. Everybody's got pretty good usual signals out here at the tower. I'll mention that. And still got to do a better job at some advertising for the net here, but well, at least we made it this week. Hopefully I can make it again this month. Hopefully I can to you, Matt. This is M9FSE. Over.
All right, thank you, Steve. You asked about Joe Bratwurst. Excuse me. And every time I try to talk, I get a cough. And Joe is not here this month, obviously, but I didn't hear from him. I would assume, no, not supposed to do that, but I would assume that being the end of the school year, he's probably pretty busy with end of the school year kind of stuff. Not sure about that, but that's my best guess. And well, you mentioned the cyber terrorism, I guess you'd call it, and I don't know, that kind of irritates me that these large companies are having this sort of problem. You know, we've known about this sort of thing for at least 10 years. You know, probably going on a lot longer than that. You know, I think everybody should be well prepared for that, and it's not hard to be prepared to back up your servers. Routinely, you can, if you back up your servers every week, you only lose a week's worth of stuff. And I don't remember which company it was that paid the huge ransom. I thought that was utterly insane that they would do that. I think for that amount of money they could have rebuilt their system from scratch. And I guess people get in a panic so they don't see things this way. But I guess I would hope that people start making backups. That's just the simplest thing to do. You know, don't rely on the cloud services, or if you do, at least use more than one. And otherwise, back up your stuff. It's not hard to do, and keep an offline backup. You never have to worry about this kind of thing at all. But enough of my rambling. We're at the bottom of the list. Do we have any last-minute check-ins for the 2 a.m. net? Come now, please. All right, hearing none. We'll go to the top of the list. We'll call this the 7-3 round, but by all means, talk as long as you want. We've got a little bit of extra time here. WB9BWP, Dave, 7-3 round from KC9UDX.
Well, 73 to everybody that's here tonight. Anybody that might be listening, no matter how they're doing that. You know what I think? Sometimes it is, like the paying off for the ransomware stuff is just simply insurance companies paying off, and then companies might go, yeah, we'll let the insurance company pay for it. Just let it go with that. But security stuff and backups and things, that's not sexy. Companies don't want to spend money on that. I mean, that's like fixing the power grid or replacing lead pipes, water pipes. Same thing. It's like we don't want to spend money on that. I remember when I did a few years at Eaton, and the group that I was in, we had half a dozen mechanical guys, and the software that they were using, I can't remember if they were using Profi or what it was at the time, but there was one guy in charge of the system, and he was part of the computer group. He wasn't part of our design group. And those guys, they were running workstations. I was on PCs doing circuit board stuff. And more than once, one of the mechanical guys would need something from like yesterday or last week. And I'd hear him say, yeah, well, they're backing up our stuff every night. And then I'd hear him grumbling about it later that, oh yeah, he said the backup hasn't run for the last month or things like that. And nobody says anything about that. It's like, well, nobody will notice. I just won't say anything. Anyhow, and talking about buffets, Golden Corral, the February meeting for 2020 for the club was start of February has been a food gathering kind of thing, and we always did it at the church, at the meeting place. But last year, we went to the Golden Corral up there. That was the last thing that we did publicly as the club. And a few weeks after that, things shut down. And finally, magazine. I'll say something in a magazine, and I'm like, oh, I gotta write this down, or I gotta remember this. So I put it over on my desk. The next thing I know, a couple of months have gone by, and I've got this stack of magazines sitting at my desk going, I knew there was stuff in there that I wanted to see. I wanted to do a lot of that. So what was it? Anyway, 73, once again, everybody's made it here, and as always, man, good job doing the net and putting it up on YouTube and stuff like in here, Jerry. So, with that, I'll finish back to that with this WB9PWP.
All right, thank you, Dave. And I have worked in environments exactly like what you're describing there, where you have design engineers looking for backups because they messed up their stuff. And what I always remember is that usually the backup winds up being corrupted, or it turns out that the stuff from yesterday was wrong too, or they lost too much of the work anyway if they recovered the backup and they have to start over. Or the biggest one is, for some reason, somebody compressed the backup and it takes 2 days to restore the backup just to get one file out of it. So I know exactly what that's like. And the one place I worked, they backed up everything on 8mm video cassettes. And when that place went under, I inherited the tapes, and I've got thousands of 8mm videotapes here. And I today use them for backups on my video toaster system. That's how I back that stuff up. It's more of an archive than backup, though, I suppose. Anyway, next we'll go to Jerry on the 7.3 round. Excuse me, K9FI from KC9UDX.
And this is K9FI, and I was just thinking, I don't know, if he picked out at the site. I was out at the website site Saturday or Sunday morning cutting grass with a new lawnmower that we bought, the Yandy, and I got looking at the logo and the layout of the site, and very glad to do it, because I think we're very fortunate to be able to have that site for our repeater, because of the altitude and everything included. So guys, grass is fall don't let's put it that way. And of course, the guys in the club got a number of people out there, and hopefully we'll have more people to do that, because the grass doesn't stop growing. And it's be a massive not be coffee. Anyhow, tonight it's a wonderful site, and that's all I can say. We're very lucky. And of course, we got this guy named Cable who helps everybody out, and I hope when he needs to add that, everybody helps him. He sure goes out of the way. He really went out of the way for our club, I'll tell you that. And I think he's a member of the group. But anyhow, it was very nice doing it. It's fun to do it with a couple of people out there. And nice to see what I can say I've never been that close to a big antenna like that before. But and Steve, when you mentioned TY, I used to go out to TY. I was out there when I was a kid. My dad used to go on a good friend living in out in West Bend there, stopping once in a while for a beer, and we always had a Rocky wagon, a liver sausage sandwich. I think it had onions on it. So whenever we would go there, I remember my buddy Wayne used to live out there, stopping there for a beer, and the liver sausage sandwich. That was always a set. So then a couple times when the bluegrass, either bluegrass or some of the local bluegrass bands would have actually get together out there in their building. And it wasn't very big, but it was an awful lot of fun, and I haven't been out there in a long time, but it's interesting trying to explain what that place is, you know what I mean? But hey, you got a very good signal here today, and let's see what else was it. I guess that's about all I got at this point. Anyhow, guys, it's good to see everybody, stay safe, and Steve was talking about all this stuff, And I agree with them. I was looking forward to having our ball and seeing everybody at our picture next week. I believe we'll be at the Washington. Everything will be good. We'll be there one way or the other. Those guys will be safe. It's a nice getting together on the radio. Back to the match. K9
All right, thank you, Jerry. Next we'll go to Steve, N9FSE. Your turn on the 7-3 round.
Super glad I was able to get out here. I'm going to try not to spend too much more time after clearing off the net. I'll do my usual dial through a couple of bands and see what I can hear quick and then get moving. But, definitely like the Schweiz. He makes the good stuff, and never caught any bluegrass over there, but I haven't spent much time in the store at all, but I would have been a neat thing to see, Jerry. I'm sure that'd be a good show for sure. And very good on the west side. I gotta renew with them. I gotta renew with a few groups, but that's what just haven't gotten around to cutting checks or sending stuff out. So I gotta get on that. It's a lot easier when you get just a net like this. Get out here, do it, and then you're done. Be present with your presence, and there we go. So that's always nice. And man, thanks for doing the net as usual. It's good out. You can give it an exercise once a month, and Dave, we look forward to the stuff as we mentioned. It'd be good to get out to all the events. And look forward to seeing you again soon. So, and Jerry and Sherry and Matt if he's available, and the whole crew. So awesome business. Good we can do a few things here, keep the lights on, and keep some stuff moving forward. So gotta like it. Just gotta do a little more out on the ski hill. At least we got some camping in. Looking forward to more of that and the rest of the summer. We'll send it back up to net and let you put it away, and we can catch up with everything on the YouTube again shortly. Haven't caught anything lately. I'll have to invest some time in that as well. So good to hear everybody. C73 from out here at the site. This is N9FSE. Over.
All right, thank you, Steve. And I got to thank all of you guys. If it weren't for you guys, we wouldn't have a net. And I guess I should keep this short because otherwise I won't be able to talk. But this is the only time I ever get on the radio anymore. So once a month, this is it. And I will say that this concludes the 2 a.m. net. Feel free to rag chew on this frequency after my transmission. We'll meet again on the 13th of July. At that point, summer will be half over. Until then, this is KC9UDX 73, and good night.